A brilliant sun cast its rays across the lively stadium, bathing the vibrant seats in golden warmth as a sea of cheerful spectators took their places. Warmth and excitement shimmered in the air, carried on the hum of conversations about the day's main event. Among those attending were members of the public, local celebrities, and even the renowned Duke and Duchess of Cambridge, Prince William and Kate Middleton, who were seated comfortably in a special reserved section. Cameras were poised in strategic positions around the venue, occasionally catching glimpses of the royal couple engaged in light-hearted banter. The day felt electric with the mingling sense of anticipation for the upcoming game and the thrill that inevitably accompanied any royal appearance. While one might expect all eyes to remain firmly on the field or on the distinguished guests, a delightful surprise was about to take center stage in the unlikeliest of places, directly between Kate Middleton and a pint-sized bundle of energy with a sweet tooth for adventure. Before we start, hit the like and subscribe buttons for more exclusive news. A wave of applause rippled through the crowd as the teams took their positions on the field, but not everyone was focused on the sporting spectacle. Close to the front rows, on a seat that was particularly ideal for a perfect vantage, sat a wide-eyed 2-year-old girl, her tiny sneakers kicking excitedly against the metal seat as she fidgeted in her booster. She was dressed in a polka-dotted jumpsuit that had bows on each shoulder and small cartoon animals embroidered on the pockets. From the moment she arrived, she had been in constant motion, giggling, spinning, and occasionally letting out excited yelps that drew fond smiles from the adults seated nearby. Her parents, seated on either side of her, were doing their best to corral her inexhaustible supply of curiosity and wonder. But any parent to a toddler knows that the job is both exhausting and exhilarating in equal measure. At the same time, Prince William and Kate were taking a moment for themselves. Though the stadium was buzzing with fans, the short break before the game's official start allowed them a little respite from the spotlight. Kate, ever graceful, seemed to be thoroughly enjoying the atmosphere. She had a box of salted popcorn perched precariously on her lap. While everyone's attention drifted between the scoreboard, the royal couple, and the warming-up athletes, no one realized that the littlest spectator had her own interests locked onto Kate's tempting snack. The toddler's curiosity had latched itself quite literally on every single buttery kernel in that gleaming box of popcorn. It was only a matter of time before that curiosity found its outlet in a gesture as adorable as it was unexpected. No one, not even Kate herself, could anticipate just how spontaneously charming the moment would become. The temperature that day was mild, made more comfortable by a gentle breeze circulating through the aisles. Laughter floated upward, punctuated by bursts of cheering from fans excited for their team. A few rows behind the toddler and her parents, a group of teenage enthusiasts chattered about seeing the royals in person. The sense of camaraderie was palpable, as if each person in the stadium recognized that they were taking part in a memorable collective experience. Yet, beneath that collective enjoyment, individual stories were unfolding quietly. In the row directly behind Prince William, an older couple spoke in soft voices about how grateful they were to live in a country where such public events were accessible to families from all walks of life. Nearby, a group of foreign tourists seemed particularly enthralled by Kate's every move, snapping photo after photo as she looked down at the field or turned to whisper something in her husband's ear. None of this bothered the 2-year-old girl, who was blissfully unaware of royal protocols or the aura of celebrity that surrounded the couple. She saw only a friendly-looking lady with shining hair, warm eyes, and an enticing box of popcorn. From her vantage point, that box might as well have been glowing. The toddler had already finished the small bag of snacks her mother had prepared, but a toddler's curiosity is rarely satiated by just one round of nibbles. The smell of salted popcorn wafted through the crisp air, and the little girl's attention kept drifting toward Kate's lap. Her eyes, a bright shade of hazel flecked with gold, followed every movement of the Duchess's hand as she reached in and out of the container. Even the distant roar of the crowd when the players started taking their positions for the anthem couldn't distract her. She was effectively spellbound by the promise of that crunchy, buttery delight. Eventually, she tried to wiggle free from her mother's gentle grip. Her father was oblivious, momentarily lost in conversation with a neighbor about the upcoming match. Her mother, on the other hand, had been in the thick of toddler chasing all afternoon and was simply thankful for a moment's lull. Perhaps if she'd been less weary, she might have noticed the mischievous glint in her daughter's eyes as they locked onto Kate's popcorn. But at that moment, it was enough just to sit still for a second, letting her arms rest while hoping her little one would stay calm until the match officially began. Little did anyone know, this toddler was about to provide a moment of pure comedy and pure heart that would steal the show from the action on the field. The stadium speaker crackled, signaling the imminent kickoff, and the national anthem rose in grand resounding notes. Yet no anthem or formalities could interrupt the toddler's laser-like focus. With unwavering determination, she deftly stretched one small arm forward, eyeing the gap between the seats. Her chubby fingers wiggled, aiming for a quick, stealthy swipe of a popcorn kernel. At first, she didn't quite reach. She made a small noise of frustration, which momentarily caught Prince William's ear, though he didn't have a line of sight to what exactly she was doing. Kate, equally unaware, clapped politely when the announcer introduced the teams, her gaze lingering on the field. Then, in a sudden tiny triumph, the toddler managed to snag her very first piece of the Duchess's popcorn. A minuscule gasp escaped the child's lips as she clenched her prize, as though she couldn't believe she'd just accomplished something so daring. With an exaggeratedly slow motion, like a spy double-checking for watchful guards, she lifted the kernel to her mouth and munched happily. The salty sweet flavor danced on her tongue. A sparkle lit her eyes. She immediately went in for a second piece, less tentative this time. It was that second handful of popcorn that finally caught Kate's attention. Feeling a soft, unexpected tug at the popcorn box, Kate glanced down, only to see the most adorable thief sampling her snack with utter glee. The moment their eyes met, time appeared to stand still. The toddler froze, kernel in hand, as if weighing whether to flee or continue munching. Then, with the carefree honesty of toddlerhood, she smiled at Kate, a tiny, scrunch-nosed grin that exuded pure affection. For a fleeting beat, Kate looked surprised. Then she broke into a warm, radiant smile of her own. Far from upset, she seemed utterly charmed. She tilted the popcorn box slightly forward, an unspoken invitation for the toddler to help herself again. It was an instinctive gesture that spoke volumes, an understanding that sometimes the most delightful moments are the ones we never plan. Her reaction drew a collective awe from people who had begun noticing the little drama unfolding in the front row. Even Prince William, who had been half focused on the anthem, turned his attention to see what was happening. Witnessing the mini popcorn bandit in action, he too couldn't help but grin broadly. He placed a hand gently on Kate's shoulder and leaned closer, forming a small circle of shared amusement between the three of them. A prince, a duchess, and a toddler bound by one playful, delicious act. The cameras, which had been scanning the crowd, finally zeroed in on this tender interaction. Giant screens around the stadium showcased the toddler's sneaky snack heist, drawing cheers and whistles from onlookers. In an instant, the footage became an internet sensation. Social media erupted as the moment was captured in real time. Tweets and messages flying about how the diminutive burglar had stolen not just popcorn, but also the hearts of those watching. Photographers snapped away, capturing the whole exchange from the toddler's stealthy approach to Kate's giggling reaction. It was an image that spoke not just to the charm of children, but also to the warmth and down-to-earth nature of the Duke and Duchess. Even later, many would recall this scene as one of the most endearing royal moments they had ever witnessed. A luminous reminder that sometimes the simplest, sweetest interactions can overshadow any grand event. Several seats down from the toddler, her parents finally realized that their daughter was the cause of all this excitement. Her mother's eyes went wide with a mixture of embarrassment and amusement. She began to apologize profusely to Kate, but Kate, smiling, shook her head lightly as if to say, "No need at all," and waved off the apology. Her entire demeanor brimmed with patience and genuine warmth. The toddler's father, now alerted to the antics, gave a half-hearted laugh that betrayed both relief that nothing serious had happened and pride that his little girl's innocent curiosity had led to such a cherished encounter. He gently scooped up his daughter, intending to place her in his lap, but the toddler squirmed playfully. She was fixated on Kate and the popcorn, reluctant to be removed from this newfound treasure trove. Prince William looked upon the scene with the softest expression. He leaned down to say something to the toddler that, from the angle and the background noise, nobody else could quite catch. Whatever he whispered, it made her giggle and reach for another piece of popcorn as Kate offered the box a bit closer. A hush of collective admiration fell upon those watching. The father lowered his head, a gesture of both humility and gratitude for the kindness shown by Britain's beloved Duchess and Duke toward his inquisitive little girl. There was no strict scolding or haughty disapproval, just tender acceptance of a child's spontaneous moment. As the game finally kicked off, and the roar of the crowd swelled, it became clear that everyone in that section had been touched by a very different kind of spectacle. The tension of athletic competition gave way, at least momentarily, to the sweet afterglow of that improbable bond forged over salted popcorn. Kate gave the toddler a friendly little pat on the top of her head, and the little one beamed back, as if they had just entered some secret camaraderie. The father, wanting to ensure his daughter didn't overstep, did his best to keep her from lunging repeatedly for the snack, but each time the toddler so much as looked Kate's way, Kate responded with a playful tilt of the popcorn box or a gentle wave. It was an unspoken agreement between them. The toddler could have a bit more, but only if she could manage it politely, with minimal disruption to those around them. An announcement on the loudspeaker momentarily stole the audience's attention back to the field as the home team made an aggressive play toward the goal. Shouts went up, applauding the near score. In the swirl of this sporting excitement, the toddler's great popcorn caper seemed to fade into the background, replaced by the cheering and chanting that now dominated the stadium. But the memory was already etched in the minds of everyone who had witnessed it. People kept turning around, exchanging whispered comments with neighbors, and pointing subtly toward the toddler with smiles. The moment had that magical quality that only a child could create. Spontaneous, unplanned, and heart-meltingly sincere. By the time the first half of the game was over, the atmosphere reached a relaxed buzz of contentment. Vendors walked through the aisles, offering hot dogs, beverages, and more popcorn. The toddler's parents declined another bag, having seen the trouble their daughter had already caused, but they exchanged a knowing look with each other. Despite their apprehension of their child's mischief, they shared a private happiness at seeing how gracious the Duchess had been. The father especially looked at his daughter with adoration, mentally tucking away this extraordinary memory that would stay with them forever. One day he would tell her about the time she innocently filched popcorn from a member of the royal family, and how that small act brought smiles to thousands of faces. He felt sure she would love to hear that story, perhaps when she was old enough to appreciate how special it was. The toddler herself, of course, had already forgotten the significance of her theft. She was now leaning her head sleepily against her mother's arm, her short-lived sugar high seemingly spent. Kate glanced over a few times, noticing the child's sleepy eyelids drooping and exchanging a gentle nod and smile with the mother. The unspoken language of parenthood bridged any possible gap between a duchess and an everyday mother. They both understood the beauty and the challenge of raising a spirited toddler. For Kate, the experience was a reminder of how children see the world with unbridled wonder. For the toddler's mother, it was an unexpected delight to find kindness and spontaneity in a place she least expected, amid security protocols, camera lenses, and strict formality that usually surrounds the royals. Although the game's pace quickened on the field and fans roared louder, the memory of the toddler's cunning little hand reaching for that popcorn lingered in the mind of anyone who had witnessed it. Even the stadium announcer, during a pause in the match, made a playful remark about the littlest star in the stands today, eliciting laughter from many who caught the reference. Media outlets on social networks were already posting short clips of the incident, with headlines praising Kate's sweet reaction and calling the toddler's stealthy popcorn theft the highlight of the day. Hashtags began to circulate, celebrating how a single adorable gesture could unite millions of people in sharing an awe moment. Royal watchers raved that this candid scene revealed the deeper essence of monarchy, a human touch that transcends pageantry and tradition. During halftime, reporters stationed around the stadium chimed in, providing quick updates that included the adorable interlude. Everyone, it seemed, wanted to talk about the toddler. Questions like, "Who is that little girl?" and "How did she manage to get so close?" floated among the audience. It turned out her father was a former college athlete who had been invited by local organizers to sit in one of the special sections. He had no clue that the Duke and Duchess of Cambridge would be sitting so close by, and his family had arrived that morning simply hoping to enjoy the match. The idea of capturing the world's attention because of a toddler's love of popcorn hadn't crossed anyone's mind. As the second half of the game started, Kate carefully placed the remainder of her popcorn under her seat, making sure the toddler wouldn't be too tempted if she woke up from her nap. She and Prince William exchanged amused glances, clearly still amused by what had transpired. He leaned in and whispered something to her that made her giggle anew. The affectionate synergy they shared reflected in the bright smiles they wore for the rest of the match. Their ability to remain genuinely approachable, even under public scrutiny, reaffirmed their reputation as royals who cared deeply about everyday people and everyday moments. Occasionally, the father would turn his head just enough to notice Prince William or Kate, trying to gauge if he should apologize again or provide any explanation. Each time he considered it, either Prince William or Kate would glance in his direction with a casual nod or friendly wave, silently reassuring him that there was no need to fuss. This unspoken courtesy was something that touched him deeply. He may not have been raised in a palace, but he understood decency and kindness when he saw it. The mismatch in their social statuses vanished in that moment, replaced by a shared sense of humanity and humor. He realized he need not be intimidated or embarrassed. His daughter had simply done what children do best: follow curiosity wherever it leads. By the time the stadium announcer declared the final score, most of the spectators had forgotten the tension of whether their team won or lost. Talk in the aisles and concession stands revolved around the adorable moment of royal friendly popcorn thievery. The father gently woke the toddler, who had dozed off for much of the second half, so they could start gathering their things. She yawned, blinked, and stretched her little arms, then looked around with groggy confusion. Her mother smoothed her messy hair and whispered something that made her eyes flicker over to where Kate was still seated. The toddler's gaze landed once more on the Duchess, as though verifying whether that marvelous popcorn event had truly happened or if it was merely a dream. Kate caught her eye, smiled softly, and gave a small, playful wave. That gentle goodbye wave brought the entire story full circle. It was a moment of closure that felt like a warm hug across seats and social divides. The toddler's lips curled into a tired but genuine smile, half hidden behind the stuffed animal she had been hugging since her nap. Without fully understanding the social significance, she intuitively recognized the kindness shown to her. To a child, it didn't matter that the woman who shared her popcorn was royalty. She was simply a friendly face who was nice enough to share a snack. The toddler responded with her own tiny wave, then nestled back into her father's shoulder, ready for the hustle and bustle of leaving the stadium. As the corridors flooded with people heading toward the exits, the father carried his daughter, and her mother walked closely behind with a diaper bag slung over her shoulder. Cameras flashed, journalists lobbed questions, and a few well-wishers offered compliments, cooing at the toddler's presence. The father answered politely, although somewhat overwhelmed by the sudden attention. He repeated over and over that he never expected his daughter's harmless curiosity to generate such a stir. Still, he handled it gracefully, saying that Kate Middleton and Prince William had been incredibly kind and patient. That alone was worth more than 1,000 official press statements. The authenticity of a real experience that wasn't orchestrated or carefully choreographed for the public eye. Outside the stadium, the warm afternoon light had turned into a gentle early evening glow. Families, couples, and groups of friends laughed and recapped their favorite moments of the match. For many, the highlight had nothing to do with who scored or missed a goal. It was the memory of a tiny child who broke boundaries by reaching for popcorn that didn't belong to her, only to find genuine kindness instead of reproach. The father walked toward the parking lot, the toddler's head bobbing sleepily on his shoulder. Her mother rummaged in the diaper bag for a spare pacifier, while occasionally responding to social media updates from friends who had seen the clips and were texting them in amazement. Nestled against her father's chest, the toddler likely had little concept of the day's significance. She had no idea that, in a matter of hours, her sweet face and bold snack pursuit would circle the globe with countless strangers across continents smiling at the footage. She didn't know that she had inadvertently gifted people a moment of pure positivity. All she understood was that she was tired, she felt safe, and she had, for a brief shining moment, tasted some of the best popcorn of her young life. No matter what other memories might fade, that salty, crunchy treat remained firmly lodged in her mind as a highlight. Perhaps, in her dreamlike toddler recollection, she might even recall the friendly lady's soft laugh and encouraging gesture. Prince William and Kate exited shortly after, accompanied by a small security detail. They moved quietly through the stadium's interior corridors, greeting event staff and coordinators with their customary blend of politeness and geniality. In the privacy of an elevator descending to the ground floor, they exchanged laughs about the popcorn fiasco, as Kate jokingly referred to it. William, ever the proud father himself, commented on how the girl reminded him of the playful nature of their own children. They both agreed it was the sort of moment that made all the protocols and ceremonial duties worthwhile, a genuine connection with ordinary life that reminded them who they served and how they wished to be seen. By the time they slipped into the back seat of their car, the stadium lights gleaming in the distance, they carried with them a small, sweet memory of the day, a 2-year-old child's fascination with popcorn and the shared laughter that followed. That evening, as videos of the incident spread across social media, numerous commentators noted how spontaneously everything had happened, an unscripted glimpse of shared humanity. Likes and heart emojis cascaded across the internet. Parenting forums erupted with chatter about how we've all been there, referencing those unpredictable toddler moments that can be equally embarrassing and endearing. Royal watchers praised Kate for her calm and gracious response, though many also pointed out that her behavior reflected what anyone would do when a small child shows interest in a snack. Share it. In an era saturated with carefully orchestrated media, the simple sincerity of the scene struck a chord in people's hearts. The story dominated headlines for days, overshadowing the game's actual score and uniting fans from opposing teams in their admiration for that spontaneous bit of sweetness. Over the next few days, the toddler's father and mother found themselves fielding calls from journalists, friends, and distant relatives who claimed to have recognized them in the viral video. They were hesitant about the sudden fame, mindful of protecting their daughter's privacy. Yet they also felt a quiet sense of pride and gratitude. Their child, still in her terrible twos, had given the world a moment that reminded everyone of the unfiltered curiosity and innocence that children embody. The father found himself reflecting on the memory often. Each time he replayed it in his mind, he was struck anew by the Duchess's unfailing kindness. He realized that behind every royal title was a person capable of real warmth, especially when it came to children. For her part, the toddler continued her daily life much as she always had, chasing butterflies in the backyard, scribbling with crayons on the living room floor, and climbing onto the furniture when she thought no one was watching. The world buzzed on about her cameo on the international stage, but she simply lived in the here and now, enthralled by the small wonders of everyday existence. She didn't care about the accolades or the trending hashtags. For her, the best part of the story was the taste of that popcorn and the sparkle in Kate's eyes as she shared it. Occasionally, she would tug on her mother's sleeve, pointing to a bag of popcorn in a grocery store aisle, and her mother would laugh, recalling how even the simplest joys, like sampling a snack, can bring people together in the most extraordinary ways. In future years, as the toddler matured into a curious child and eventually a teenager, her parents would retell this story at family gatherings. Each time they embellished it with new twists and comedic detail, describing how she'd reached stealthily past an unsuspecting royal with all the determination her 2-year-old mind could muster. Sometimes they joked that they should have named her something like Popcorn Bandit, just to commemorate that day. Friends would ask repeatedly, "Is it true that Kate let her keep stealing popcorn?" And the parents would grin and reply, "Not stealing, she shared." Everyone would laugh, and inevitably the father would add how Prince William had given him a nod that spoke volumes about fatherhood, a kind of unspoken camaraderie shared by all parents faced with a toddler's unstoppable will. Whenever the topic arose, it reminded those listening of a universal truth that the grand divides of status or background often crumble in the face of simple, heartfelt gestures. At the core, parents recognize the delight in a child's face when she gets her hands on a coveted treat. Royals or not, people cherish acts of kindness, and children don't need a crown to appreciate good popcorn. This unanticipated synergy of childlike innocence and regal composure underscored a kinder, lighter side of public life, providing a bright contrast to the world's complexities and challenges. It became a story that transcended the boundaries of normalcy and celebrity, weaving itself into conversations not because it was sensational, but because it was tender and real. Years passed, but the footage remained on the internet, occasionally resurfacing in nostalgic compilations or heartwarming clips. The toddler grew older, the world moved on to new viral moments, and the Duke and Duchess of Cambridge continued their royal duties, building upon their public image as caring, relatable figures. Yet the memory of that day lived on in a special way. It existed in the intangible realm of joyful recollection. A father's pride, a mother's relief, a child's happiness, and a royal couple's warmth. Strangers who had never met each other found a reason to smile together, bridging generational and cultural gaps. All because one little girl dared to reach for a snack that wasn't hers and discovered, in the process, that sometimes the best reactions come from the most unexpected sources. Even when the toddler was old enough to see pictures of herself sitting beside Kate Middleton, she didn't fully comprehend the significance. She recognized her own image, sure, the polka-dotted jumpsuit and the baby curls framing her face, and she giggled at the sight of herself munching on popcorn. She asked her father and mother to tell the story again, always delighted by the part where the Duchess leaned down to offer the box rather than scold her. It became something of a bedtime tale in their home, representing not only a moment of personal history, but a small, shining example of kindness in a world that often forgets how easy it is to offer a smile instead of a frown. As this girl's life carried on through school recitals, birthday parties, and road trips with her parents, the detail of stealing popcorn from Kate Middleton slowly became more symbolic than literal. It served as a gentle reminder that the most precious memories often arise from impulses of simple curiosity. It also underscored how powerful and enduring a kind reaction can be. 1,000 speeches on etiquette and decorum could never match the impact of a duchess choosing to share her popcorn rather than recoil from a child's small, questing hand. In the swirl of public discourse about what it means to be royal, about the responsibilities that come with influence, and about the complicated intersections of privacy and celebrity, one timeless truth stands out. Compassion has no rank, no uniform, and no set of prescribed gestures. It just flows naturally when hearts remain open. The stadium where it happened continued to host countless events over the years, from sports finals to charity concerts. Yet whenever a new family walked those rows and heard the legend of the toddler and the Duchess, they found themselves smiling at the idea of a tiny child bridging worlds with a handful of popcorn. Stadium ushers who had been on duty that day would recount the story with fond nostalgia, describing how the crowd's attention pivoted from the field to a single seat in the stands, all for the delight of a small moment that overshadowed the spectacle of a professional match. If magic is the power to bring hope and joy into the present moment, then that day, amid roaring fans and echoing anthems, real magic happened in the simplest of ways. Long after the father returned to his everyday job and the mother resumed her routine, they still felt a quiet glow whenever they thought about how their daughter had forged an unforgettable memory with the Duchess of Cambridge. It wasn't about who was more important or famous, it was about meeting on common ground, sharing a snack, and creating a moment that warmed hearts across the globe. Every once in a while, on a lazy Sunday afternoon, they would pop a bowl of popcorn, gather around the living room couch, and watch the short clip of that day together. Laughter always followed, along with a sense of gratitude that life can be so beautifully unpredictable. Many might say that time has a way of dulling the shine of memories, but not this one. It remained a beacon of the brighter side of human nature. Each retelling, each rewatching, each mention of it in the press or on social media sparked renewed appreciation for the small kindnesses that exist around us. A toddler reached into a duchess's box of popcorn, and instead of chastisement, she received warmth and acceptance. That was the heart of the story. A reminder to embrace life's spontaneous joys and to greet each other with compassion. And indeed, those who revisit that moment often find themselves wearing a smile, convinced that for all the troubles in the world, there remain countless reasons to hope. After all, if a 2-year-old can spontaneously bring together an entire stadium and a global community for a shared laugh, then maybe the threads connecting us all are both stronger and more delicate than we ever imagined. The game ended long ago. the scoreboard lights dimmed, and the crowd's cheers gave way to the gentle lull of an emptying stadium. But the memory of a small child's bold, buttery adventure carried on, shining far beyond the stands. It didn't matter who won or lost that day. Everyone who witnessed or heard about it became a little richer in spirit. Sometimes, a simple act of curiosity and a simple gesture of kindness can melt hearts, reminding the world that behind the grandeur of titles and positions, we're all just people ready to share a laugh and a snack. And for one lucky little girl, that day will forever stand as proof that no barrier is too tall and no person too distant when generosity finds its way into a heart and a kernel of popcorn finds its way into a child's tiny hand. If you liked this video, please give it a like and subscribe to our channel. Also, could you leave your comments below and tell us? What are your thoughts on the 2-year-old stealing popcorn from Kate Middleton? We want to hear from you. Thank you for watching, and see you next time.